Thank you for tuning in to the Doing Business with God podcast.
Hey, you. Yes, you. I am your host, Michi Renee.
It is Michi's passion to help you live your best life and do business God's way. Michi will be talking about entrepreneurship, manifestation, monetization, mindset, beliefs, starting and growing a business, nonprofit, or ministry, all while serving God. So welcome to My Daddy's Business. It's time for the show. It's the Doing Business with God podcast with your host, Michi Renee.
Hello, tribe. Welcome back to another episode of the Doing Business with God podcast, dedicated to helping you do business God's way. In this episode, I will be talking to Miss Michaela Collins. She is the founder of the Train Your Brain podcast. Here, she helps you enhance your mindset so you can enhance your life through healing and learning yourself. She gives you things to focus on a daily basis to elevate your lifestyle so you can prosper. Welcome to the podcast, Michaela.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, I am happy for you to be on here. So tell us a little bit about why you started the Train Your Brain podcast and where the idea came from.
So I started it originally because there were things that I noticed within myself that I feel that when people ask you what your calling is, and sometimes it's hard to really put it together or figure it out. Well, I believe that mine is to help people grow their life and help people heal themselves. And so I started the podcast because I found myself answering to people's messages and responding to people's stories on Instagram if they would be nervous about something or if they would be expressing concern, and I would just try to help them, and I'd be like, hey, what's going on, are you okay, and try to make them feel better and try to give them tools or tips. And especially if it was something that I had gone through before myself, I would try to lead them through how I got to the healing place that I got to. And so I started the podcast because I would be making little videos, just short clips here and there, and people were really responding to it, and people seemed to really enjoy what I was saying. And some people said like, wow, this really changed my life, and like I never heard it put this way before. And so I thought to myself, well, this would be a good way to help people on a larger scale if I could have it all condensed down into one spot. And so I started the podcast, and people have been reaching out to me, asking me for certain topics and asking me for certain ways to help them better themselves. So that's really why I started it, because I just love seeing people go through a healing transformation.
That's awesome. So where did you come up with the name Train Your Brain?
That's a good question. I was thinking for a while about not a super specific thing to talk about or a super specific thing to name it, because I don't want to exclude any topics. But originally it was let's talk about it, which was too vague. And then I was thinking, yeah, it's definitely like could be anything. So I was like, all right, let me toss that. It's not good. And then I was thinking, well, what do I do? And I'm like, well, I help people rewire their brain and help people stop forming these neural pathways that are not advancing them. So I was like, all right, well, might as well call it Train Your Brain, because you are literally through daily habits and through small micro managements of your time, you can train your brain to do something completely different than what it was doing a week or a month ago.
Awesome. So talk to me about the neural pathways for someone who may not understand that terminology and exactly what it is and how it affects you and how you can rewire it, retrain yourself, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So neuroscience is just the science of the brain. So neural pathways are brain pathways. And when you do something over and over and you repeat a certain action or a certain thought process, even, you are wiring your brain to say, okay, this equals this. So for example, if you have a bad habit of procrastinating, which a lot of us do, myself included for sure, if you are saying, okay, I'm going to do something at 5 p.m. and then you get to 5 p.m. and you're kind of just like, meandering, not really getting to the thing, then you're training your brain to say, okay, doing it now means put it off till later. And so when you do that over and over, it becomes normal for you. And so when you try to rewire your brain, you are going to take that exact habit and just as much as you can say, okay, doing it now means doing it now, rather than doing it now means doing it 4 hours from now or something like that. So yeah, definitely just little repeated habits to fix the pathways that you've created that had the bad habits before.
Right.
We hope that you are enjoying this episode. If you would like to be a guest, check the show notes for all the details. Let's get back to the Doing Business with God podcast with Michi Renee.
So is there a process or a step-by-step action that someone can take if they are, let's use your example, if they are trying to stop procrastinating? Is there a certain way that they should do it? Something they should say, something they should do?
Yeah, so I would say if someone's trying to stop procrastinating, I'd say number one, just for anything that you're trying to change at all, just to preface anything that you're trying to change in your life, is to not be hard on yourself, because that's a problem that I've had a lot in the past, was being very hard on myself and, getting down on myself if I didn't do anything the right way. So just keep that in mind throughout the whole process. But I would definitely say that what you can do when you're trying to not procrastinate is you can take what you have to do and write out a list. And what's helped me a lot is having a list just even hour by hour throughout the day. And I know it sounds like a lot. It sounds like, all right, I don't want to have to map out my whole day. But if you do this on a Sunday night and you can plan out your whole week, then you'll have so much more freedom, because you won't feel like you're just like meandering saying, oh, I have something and I'll put it off till Thursday because it's due on Thursday. You can say, all right, well, on Monday, I'm going to work on it at this time, Tuesday at this time. And you can just kind of see like chipping away at it little by little throughout the day. And you can actually, like, the long extensive lists actually really help people a lot. So I would say definitely make a list. And even these things sound simple, but when you put it into practice, it really, really helps. So make a list. And even if you don't get all of it done, even if you get half or a quarter of what you wanted to do done, then it's still better than getting nothing done. And you can still feel a little bit good about yourself, because it kind of kills our self-esteem when we say we're going to do something over and over and then we never get to it, because then we don't trust ourselves, So I would definitely say do a little bit. If you want to clean your whole room and it's daunting and it's overwhelming, when you go into your room, every time just put one or two things away. And then that will reinforce this positive habit that you're trying to create.
I totally agree with you. I have what I call my CEO schedule, and I teach my clients to build out their CEO schedule. So for example, for me, my business hours that I work are 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So I schedule everything around those hours. So when I'm doing content, I batch content create. And so I may block off 2 hours in the morning. Or if I have client calls, or if I have podcast interviews, those are on certain days of the week, generally for me, Sundays and Mondays. So I have my schedule mapped out and I do things within those certain hours. So if that helps someone to not procrastinate, that may be one of those tips or habits that you could use to help train your brain, as you said, go to a healthier state. So try using the CEO schedule for anyone who's really trying to stop procrastinating and really stick to a schedule that could probably help in that situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's cool that you have like the certain times and days, because, you come to Sunday and I believe you said 2 to 4 p.m. on Sundays or something along those lines?
Yeah. So the podcast, I generally have people schedule on Sundays from 12 noon to 6 p.m. or on Mondays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then like on other days, I have specific things that I do: content creation, engaging client calls, all those different things I have filled in on my calendar. So yeah.
Absolutely. And do you use like Google Calendar, or do you have it physically written out?
I use the Google Calendar. Mm-hmm.
That's very helpful. Because definitely, like, a lot of times we'll think, oh, we can do this at this time. And then we'll look at the Google Calendar and it's nope, all blocked off. Can't make it work, So it's definitely, those things are definitely helpful. And if you ever, it's cool to have things at certain times on certain days, because if you're ever forgetful, then your brain will kind of subconsciously remind you like, oh, we got to go do this because it's Sunday and it's this time. So I like that a lot.
At Travel Genie, we make your travel dreams come true. We customize your trip. We create itineraries, book airfare, hotels, cars, and event tickets. We don't just book travel. We create experiences. Travel Genie has 4 trips planned for 2021. San Francisco, Essence, Toronto, and Bali. A $100 deposit gets you started. Use the link below for more information. Find us on Instagram and Facebook at Travel Genie 2017 and online at travelgenie.com.
Yeah.
I
How long have you been doing the podcast?
I've been doing the podcast since June of 2020.
Okay, awesome.
I think I've like grown a lot since then, since starting it, even like because I want to give people the best content that I can. And what I'm seeing from a lot of the other podcasts that I listen to, and what I'm seeing in myself is that I'm also growing at the same time and I'm also learning. And so as I learn new lessons, I get to share it with people. So I think it's really powerful. And I had started a few years ago a journal. Anytime I would learn a lesson, I would mark it in my journal. And so now I can actually like give it out to people and they can hopefully use what I've learned to their advantage.
Yes, that's amazing. I love that. So, what was your podcast journey kind of before you started it? So, what process did you go through for that?
It's actually been a very long process, and it's cool because I didn't even know that it was happening when it started. When you look back on your life and you see things that just make sense, and you didn't even know what your calling was going to be at the time, but you could connect the dots. Yeah. It's so cool. So I had looked in my notes page on my phone because I was trying to clear storage on my phone, and I looked at a note from 2017, and it was a video idea, and it was different talking points for a video. And I didn't know when I was going to make the video or where I was going to put it, but it was just all these ideas. And then I started looking at more and more, and it was like, oh, title of a video could be something like this, and just kind of loose-ended little notes. And then in 2019, I started seriously thinking about it. And I don't remember exactly where the idea came from, other than me putting out videos just on my personal Instagram about whatever I was thinking about or a lesson I had just learned and people responding to it. So I believe that was the initial moment that sparked the actual thought of, hey, let me start a podcast. And so since then, I had been dragging my feet a little bit, trying to just perfect everything. And I think that's another big lesson, is to just, even if you don't think it's perfect, just put it out,
Do it like Nike.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just do it. Because what's the worst that can happen? You watch it in a month and you're like, oh, wow, I've grown a lot in a month and that wasn't my best work. So what? Like you started it and you did it, and you get to be progressing and you get to look back on it because you actually stepped into it. So my first video I never released because I thought it was too clunky. I thought it was, too long.